Welcome to the ASEAN Electric Vehicle Outlook Conference. Today's virtual event is organized by Informa Markets, Phil Energy, Asian Federation of Electric Vehicle Associations, and the Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines. To actively participate in today's session, you may click on the Webinar Assistant button, which you may see in the conference theater. If you have questions to our speakers, please type them in at the box located at the Questions tab. To send a message to the rest of the audience, you may send them in at the box located at the Chat tab. For any assistance that you may need, please send a request via the Help tab and our team will assist you. Please welcome our moderator for today's session, Dr. Manny Bayona. He is the Executive Director of the Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines.
Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone is having a great morning. For everyone joining us as we bring together industry experts to part online conference where the panels will engage in thought-provoking discussions on the opportunities and challenges in pushing development of electric vehicle infrastructure, passing national legislations and other factors affecting the promotion of adoption of electric vehicles in Southeast Asian. The theme for this session is EV charging infrastructure for the Philippines, challenges and opportunities. To start off, you will hear from Mr. Director Patrick Aquino, Director of the Energy Utilization Management Bureau of the Department of the Philippines. Director Aquino is a career executive service officer rank 3. He has to serve in various capacities in the Department of Energy, from the Office of the Secretary, Information Technology Management Service, Energy Policy and Planning Bureau. The passage of the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Bill in 2019, after more than 3 decades of its initial draft. Director Aquino, the support of DOA stands at the forefront of the implementation of energy efficiency and conservation. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Director Patrick T.
We take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the ASEAN Electric Vehicle Outlook session. Indeed, it is our pleasure to present the developments in electric vehicle charging stations, EVCS, in the Philippines. This presentation will cover the situationer, the projects and initiatives, government policies and measures, and our view on the challenges and opportunities. Oil accounts for 49% of the country's total final energy consumption at 16.9 million tons of oil equivalent. Of this, 36% is on fuel consumption for the transport sector, while 88% is on road transport. All these figures just confirm the vast potential of electric in this energy-intensive sector. A shift to electric will also mean lesser emissions. The transition to more efficient vehicles such as electric has been slow in the transport sector. From 2010 to 2019, 11,950 EVs were registered. This represents a mere 0.09% of registered vehicles. For context, conventional vehicles account for 99.91% or more than 12,713,355 registered vehicles. Of the registered EVs, majorities are e-trikes or e-motorcycles. This is followed by e-utility buses, e-cars, e-buses, and others. For projects and initiatives, the concluded projects on the Japan Non-Project Grant Aid (NPGA) promoted EVs through a donation of these next-generation vehicles. Recipients included those affected by Typhoon Yolanda. NPGA also provided EVCS in the Office of the President, DOST, and DOE. The market transformation through the introduction of energy-efficient electric vehicles project deployed 3,000 locally manufactured e-trikes to 37 local government units and national government agencies. Ongoing initiatives build on the prior projects. These include demonstration for EV chargers, development of emergency response protocols, training course modules for EV technicians, fuel cell vehicles, and minimum energy performance MEP for EVCS. These are complemented by information, education, and communication campaigns. Under the 2018-2040 Philippine Energy Plan (PEP), EVs are expected to account for 10% of road transport vehicles by 2040 in the clean energy scenario. This would translate to 5% aggregate energy savings from oil and electricity through the period. In parallel, increased deployment of other alternative fuel vehicles in coordination with local government units. To realize the aspirations in the PEP for EV, the following laws and issuances are considered. Republic Act No. 11285 or the Energy Efficiency and Conservation EEC Act, the implementing rules and regulations of the EEC Act, DC 2020-10-0023, which refers to DC 2017-11-001, EVCS within liquid petroleum retail outlets, and DC 2020-012-003, EVCS in buildings and facilities. Additionally, EVs and EVCS have been incentivized by the excise tax exemption for 100% of EVs under the Tax Reform for Acceleration and Inclusion (TRAIN), Income Tax Holiday, and Importation on Capital Equipment under the Omnibus Investment Code as implemented by the 2020 Investment Priorities Plan or IPP. The importance of EVs have prompted Senate Bill 1382 and House Bill No. 4075, which seeks to support EVCS with the law. The bill aims to promote a cleaner and more efficient mode of transportation system, accelerate the adoption and mainstreaming of EVs and its support infrastructure, mandatory 5% share in corporate and government fleets, dedicated parking slots for EVs, and open access installation for EVCS. In the interim, the DOE will be issuing a department circular on EVCS, which will cover activities related to the development, establishment, use, supply, distribution, and operation of EVCS. Key provisions include the reinforcement on the application of the Philippine National Standard or PNS, dedicated locations, energy label and marking requirements, and the endorsement procedure to the Board of Investments for fiscal incentives. However, challenges remain for EVs. These include the initial high cost as compared to the internal combustion engine vehicles, inadequate support for EVs, limited number of investors in EVCS, battery recycling and disposal, and concerns on interruptions on electrical supply. Notwithstanding the challenges, economic opportunities abound when EVCS and EVs take off. These include research and development on parts and components, construction of EVCS, testing laboratories, service shops, among others. EVs are not only efficient, they are also perceived favorably by the public. We hope that you will support EVs and invest in them in the Philippines. For more information or clarification, you may reach us through email and the DOE website. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Director Aquino. This morning, we're very fortunate to have our next speaker. She's from Shell. So our next speaker is Ms. Tracy Zai. She is a transformative leader with 80 years wide and diverse record of driving business transformation in Asia Pacific, Middle East, Europe markets, and is currently based in Singapore. She has experience with multinational corporates in different industries such as international trading, shipping and logistics, professional services, oil and service, energy, and different functions like sourcing, sales and marketing, customer service, operations and technology, and strategy. Her recent endeavor focuses on energy transition, sustainability, and e-mobility strategy development and implementation. She is a certified Lean Six Sigma Master Black Belt, Agile Master Project Management Professional, Change Management Coach, a PhD candidate of Singapore Management University, which research area on strategy and sustainability, business innovation, and digital transformation. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Miss Tracy Sai.
Good morning, everyone. My pleasure to be here. Hope you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay. Am I audible?
Perfect.
Cool. All right. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and talk about Shell and our EV business. Providing clean and reliable EV solution is at the center of Shell's commitment to customers. Earlier this year, we announced our new strategy that aims to accelerate ambition to provide a net zero emission energy product and services. As you can see from screen, Shell's ambition is really to be a net zero emission energy business by 2050 or sooner. We support the transition to a lower carbon future to keep in step with society as it moves and reaching the goals set by the Paris Agreement in terms of the climate change. To this end, we are investing in lower carbon mobility options and are looking for collaborate closely with governments and industry partners. Shell is committed to provide cleaner and energy solution for cars in Asia. A range of the technologies will be needed across the different models for mobility for people and goods. These will include hybrids, biofuels, natural-based solutions, LNG, and hydrogen. Specific for EV charging, Shell is exploring how to serve the world's increasing number of EV cars drivers, both on our forecourt and beyond. Our net zero emission by 2050 ambition will require significant electrification, particularly in light-duty passenger and freight transport segments. The increasing experience in EV charging, while the retail and the new energy provides great clarity on how current regulatory priorities can enable this ambition while providing customer experience. We're motivated knowing that we have the skill and network to enable us to develop charging infrastructures, whether it's at our existing service stations or on the go, such as the supermall, fleet depots, or even people's homes. Recognizing that e-mobility customers will span all these EV charging segments, Shell wants to provide charging across all these locations, and so will be subject to public charging as well as the residential power market regulations. Our ambition of e-mobility business is to be the global leader in EV charging infrastructure and services. Today, Shell offers across over 60,000 charging points around the world. We continue to grow our charging point network and aim to operate more than 500,000 EV charging points worldwide by the end of 2025. Some regions like Europe, China, and the US are leading the way in the transition from internal combustion engine to the battery electric vehicles. And the regulators are bringing forward a number of policies to move the change. Following our acquisition of Greenlots, we introduced Shell Recharge to provide rapid charging at selected retail stations in Asia. This is the start of the wider Pan-Asia programs that includes Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and China, with other markets in the region soon to follow. In Singapore, we have established our first EV charging points at the petrol station 2 years ago. Up to date, our network in Singapore has grown to 18 charging points since then. And this also plus 90 public Greenlot charges, which is a Shell subsidiary outside our mobility sites. Earlier this year, the Energy Market Authority of Singapore and Shell initiated a joint program to develop Singapore's first series of service stations integrated with smart energy management solution by 2022. These 3 stations will soon be partially powered by solar energy and offer significantly faster charging services than current 50 kilowatt DC chargers. The new stations will also be equipped with energy storage system to mitigate the intermittency due to the weather conditions. A smart energy management system will also be deployed. In Malaysia, Shell established the first reserve and recharge station in shopping mall back in 2019, using the cleaner and innovative solution to address the pain point of EV users in the market. So far, we have built 18 AC charging points across 7 locations, including shopping malls, corporate offices, and hospital. And we're exploring more locations following customer needs. While Shell is expanding EV charging footprint across the region, there is also challenges we're facing, such as a variable investment case, land use restrictions, and power constraints. The support from government is essential to overcome these challenges as we work through together across the EV transition journey. So now, back to the e-mobility ecosystem in the Philippines. We believe everyone has a role to play to ensure a long-term and a sustainable CREV. Consider we are still in early stage. A flexible pilot approach is necessary. Shell supports the policy to develop a comprehensive roadmap on electric vehicles in the Philippines in order to promote innovation in clean, sustainable, and efficient energy. We believe that CREV should be sustainable to ensure that it will deliver its desired long-term policy objectives. With this in mind, it's best to start with a flexible pilot approach instead of a mandatory investment requirement. This will help the industry prepare, develop, and sustain an appropriate business model that best fits the Philippine market. There are some important factors needs to be considered here, such as significant investment is required to put charging points even in existing gasoline stations. These include the acquisition of assets of equipment, the reconstruction or remodeling of existing areas, and a separate and dedicated business operating model. The significant investment may not be compatible with low utilization due to the low demand in the pilot stage. So this will impact not only the charging business, but also the fuel business. That's why to best serve the public and ensure the sustainability, the industry should be allowed to define and implement solutions that are driven by market forces in terms of the timing, location, and the business model. Besides the market-driven flexibility, there are also other commercial implications we'd like to share. First is the technology and the design standards will incur additional complexity and cost from material specifications, cost to construct, and cost to maintain for charging stations. As the Philippines is an importer of vehicles, it will be best to replicate appropriate international design standards to ensure the compatibility, easy of transition, and cost optimization through the economy of scale and and duplication avoidance. It will be the best that DTI, BPS, OEMs, and charging service providers are fully consulted and aligned on such standards before any mandates are set on EV charging implementation. Secondly, as much as having reliable charging points and charging service providers are necessary to induce the EV ownership and the usage, we would also like to express that more EV operator and owner incentives are explored to ensure that there's sufficient demand for EV charging services. Private vehicles comprise an estimate about 70 to 80% of vehicle traffic. Conversion of these owners are vital to the sustainable operations, scaling, and implementation of the EV charging points. Without sufficient consumer demand, the cost incurred for the EV charging station will have the impact on the economics per investment and the cash flow from EV charging operators. If there's not enough EV demand to break even or make this investment profitable, the risks of net operating losses will increase for operators and owners, which will lead to an effect on business tax collectors and even the manpower employed per site. So with this in mind, I think it's better that that we can also consider subsidies or government grants for the EV charging operators, and this has also been proven effective in the more EV advanced markets. As Cesar Romeo, our country chair of Shell Philippines, said, a rapidly growing economy and the government's strong emphasis on infrastructure will open a significant number of mobility options for consumers in the Philippines. As the government moves to usher the change to the mobility landscape, mobility providers must also take steps to support the national policies and provide advice where possible. Working together, we can have a deep and a lasting impact on consumers in the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tracy, for the presentation. I'm sure the Department of Energy is listening, and I believe there's a lot of things that that could be learned from the views that you've just shared. Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much again. Our final speaker is from Uni Oil. He's currently the Vice President of Uni Oil. He has 11 years of experience in the fast food industry and was previously a director of the franchising, store operations, retail network expansion, marketing, and commissary operations. He has almost 18 years of experience in the oil and gas industry, 10 years of which was working with Filipina Shell Petroleum Company, and almost 8 years with Oil Petroleum Philippines Incorporated. He was previously the lubricants brand manager of Shell Helix with various experience in industrial sales, retail store operations, retail business development, and network expansion. Currently, he is the president of the Independent Philippine Petroleum Companies Incorporated, an association of the Philippine-based independent oil companies. He is also the vice president of Oil Petroleum Philippines Incorporated, handling manufacturing, logistics, and corporate communications. Additionally, heads Oil Renewable Energy Group, responsible for introducing Oil's air quality monitoring network in 50 locations nationwide, and the launch of Oil's electric vehicle fast charging stations in Metro Manila since 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Noel Soriano. Hi, Noel. I think you're on mute.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good morning. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Manny Biona, our esteemed moderator for today. I'd also like to thank Mr. Dexter Dato, the country head for Informa Markets, Phil Energy, for inviting us. President Edmund Araga of the Asian Federation of Electric Vehicles Association and EVAP of the Philippines. Thank you for the invitation to be part of this event. I'd like to also thank the DOE Director, Patrick Aquino, who spoke earlier today, who shared with us a lot of things, and from Shell, Ms. Tracy She. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here to share with you the case study of the Philippines and the business perspective on the EV charging station infrastructure development in the Philippines. So as an agenda, I'll be presenting to you the Uni-Oil case study. This is 4 years of experience running EV charging stations as a pioneer in the Philippines to put up an EV charging station co-located in a gas station. And we've been doing this since 2017. And I'll summarize for our guests and attendees the summaries and the summary of the issues and concerns that we've encountered. No, right. Okay, the case study. Unioil is an oil company. It's been operating in the Philippines for the last 55 years already, and it is now the fourth largest oil company in the Philippines. It is the only one that offers a complete line of Euro 5 fuel grade products in all its gas stations. The Philippine standard is Euro 4, but Unioil is offering a higher grade. No? So we are specializing on our fuel retail stations. And the game changer is that in 2017, Unioil decided and actually introduced to the market two electric vehicle charging stations co-located in a gas station. No? So that's nearly 4 years of experience. And in 2020, just last year, we also installed the EV charging station, EV chargers in our office building to encourage our employees and also the tenants of the building to shift to electric vehicles. No? Now, before I switch a slide, a lot of people are saying, it is very surprising that an oil company would take the initiative to do this, no? Especially that the common mindset is that the electric vehicles, the entry of the electric vehicles will spell the demise of the retail fuel station business, no? So while it is true, we see that the death will only come if the business sector will just watch and die like a dinosaur, no? So it is important to see that the petroleum companies have an active role to play in the change, no? So we have to reinvent ourselves, no, and support this change, not because it's a threat to our business, but because it is intrinsically good for humankind, no? It is better for the environment, and we see sustainability in this business as well. So why not and support it as early as possible? Our past 4 years of experience, and this is a photo of one of our fast charging stations located in the BC Makati Central District along the main highway. No? So the summary of issues and concerns first is really low demand. No? This is a known fact already that the EV is in its in the infancy stage, no? And as Director Aquino said, that even the government is trying its best to issue already the new laws that will actually incentivize and promote the adoption and growth of its industry. So for the past 4 years, customers has really been very few, no? And even the cars, no, the transition to buy more electric vehicles for the Filipinos is still out of reach. No, it is still very expensive to buy an electric vehicle. It's still cheaper to buy an internal combustion engine vehicle. No? So I guess that's a natural dilemma. But we see that the direction is that the costs of EV and batteries will eventually go down. So we see that the growth and the adoption will definitely start picking up and increase over the next 15 years. On the slide that you see is some borrowed slide with recognition to IEA. No, and by 2030, they are looking at increasing the population. No? So right now, in a nutshell, the left slide, you'll see that about 5% of the total new vehicle car sales are EVs. And we hope that that share of sale will gradually increase. No? So low demand is the first experience that we have. The second one is the high investment cost. As we know, or as not many people know, because a lot of people look at the cars, on the charging business side, there are multiple charging protocols to choose from, no? And they are not compatible with one another. The pictures that I've posted on the screen are, of course, borrowed photos from the manufacturers themselves. But if you can see, the plugs to the different cars are different shapes, no, and putting up a charging station uh, begs the question of whether the car that you will buy can be charged in the charging station, whether this charging station has all the plugs and all the different protocols, no, whether it's a CCS type of charger, a Japanese CHAdeMO, or a GBT, a Chinese charger. These are the different choices. So for a charging station to put up all of this, then you are looking at a very high capex, no, a very high investment cost, and the barrier to entry for the charging infrastructure is very high. If the expectations is to have a complete set, then we're looking at about probably 3 to reaching 10 million just for the equipment alone, no? And of course, the dilemma, even if we are willing to cough up the money, is the obsolescence dilemma. No, it's like a cell phone. The batteries are changing, the charging protocols might be changing, the EV cars are also changing. So will we reach return on investment before the change happens? No. The next one is also the power supply. No, the government, the Philippine infrastructure for power is not ready. No, the fast chargers require 400 volts power input. So even if we buy the equipment, we cannot just run it with the usual 220 volts available power in the typical locations. No, so very hard to come by. And if the private sector is also expected to invest in their own transformers and step up transformers, then or a generator, this will definitely double the required investment. So again, the issue of high investment cost and negative payback are big concerns of the industry. No? So with at least with regards to the power availability, we've been working very closely with the director of the DOE and the Congress to help us review the power energy plan of the Philippines so that the private sector and the public is provided with at least a power source suitable for the EV chargers. No? The home chargers can be plugged at 220, but this is not something that is suitable for a high turnover location that is located on the roadside. No? So the next one is that currently the private sector is not allowed to charge fees, no, for charging. So out the window comes the hope for any payback or any return on investment. But this is being addressed already by the government with a lot of thanks. So the Senate Bill 1382 and House Bill 4075, the business sector is waiting in anticipation that this be passed so that at least it paves the way, it removes the roadblock for revenue generation, no, for this one. The next one is, of course, we badly need the government's help to spur all of this. The first is the new EV law that I mentioned, the Senate Bill 1382 and House Bill 4075. We also proposed to the national government, and we've been working with the DOE to engage in a study, no, to possibly choose just one national EV charging protocol standard. No? This model has been done already in other countries, and it has been shown that even the car manufacturers can actually install and adopt the compatible charging protocol that a country requires if they intend to continue selling in that country. So this will drastically lower the investment cost to put up EV charging stations. No? What we don't have is for people to expect that the Philippines have a lot of charging stations, and when they reach there and they're about to run out of charge, they find out that the charging unit is not compatible with their vehicle. No, so we also need to review the incentives for the EV charging infrastructure. What has been mentioned about incentives for tax-free importation for cars is for cars. Tax-free importation for the capex equipment, yes. But I guess the income tax holiday that the government have for the first 3 years is not congruent with the expectations for the EV industries to be just picking up and hopefully getting to healthy levels over the next 10 years. No? So again, this is something that I guess the charging infrastructure business side of it will be working on. This is to encourage, that there is at least a better hope for the business sector to have a feasible and I guess, a reasonable payback on their investments. So the key takeaways first is the last slide is that the electric vehicle is a new sunrise industry. It definitely is changing the entire landscape of the consumer behavior on mobility choices. No, and therefore, if the people will really shift from fuel cars to EV cars, then the business industry paradigm of mobility and even the energy to support it is evolving. Definitely, the private sector have to change, and have to support this change because it is good. Second is that the EV mobility needs a physical network of recharging support stations for it to become mainstream. If not, you will see that the EV will only be used for within city center short distances. And we feel that the internal combustion vehicles will still be the one used for long distance drive without a feasible infrastructure of recharging network outside of the cities. No? The third is that the EV industry needs the government support. Certainly without it, we cannot see a growth of this industry. No? So the new EV law, the Bureau of Investment Incentives, and the Power Energy Plan, just to summarize. And of course, number four, we have to continue encouraging the private sector because we need them. Their investment is needed to provide the investment to expand the EV mobility support services to support a nationwide growth. So with that, I'd like to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. And I'd like to hand back the floor to our moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noel, for the realities that you just pointed out. Yeah, they're quite interesting. Yeah. Thank you very much for all our audiences, and we've got already a couple of questions. Okay. The first question goes to Miss Tracy Sai. What are the critical success factors in operating electric charging stations and moving the needle from pilot to a wider network expansion?
Great question. I would say the success factors of moving from pilot to the massive expansion, right? I would say there's no magic or the single silver bullets to define the success ingredient. While there are internal factors and external factors, but internally, we can always plot in the learner mindset, agile approach, which we see in any new nascent domains, right? Requires them keep customers' needs in mind and keep trying and also using the market feedback to refine the product and then adjust fast. So that this is the part that I think that within the organization, we can control the influence. But I would also like to highlight that more importantly, there's a lot of external factors will influence that decide the success of the scale up. And then I would say it is not a single factors, being the government, being the consumer, or being the industry sectors can play the decisive role, because it has to be everyone in the ecosystem, in the whole EV charging supply chain, from the energy players, the grid, the manufacturers to end users has to play a role here. And specifically, the take-up of the EV demand and then the economy of scale is the key, as we just hear the sharing of the challenges, right? And this can be driven by the available of products in the market, total cost of ownership, and even the psychological acceptance of the EV users, typically like the range anxiety. So I think these are the factors will take everyone in the ecosystem as a society will have to play a role for us to break the even and then reach the massive, greener and more sustainable future of mobility. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you very much. So basically, you're saying that everything needs to be integrated. It's got to be a concerted effort. So not
Yes.
only focusing on the charging side, but also focusing on the demand generation. Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So thank you very much for that.
No problem.
I've got actually two questions for Mr. Noel Soriano, but I think I'll get it ask them together because they're quite related. So Noel, are there plans by Union Oil to put up more EV charging stations soon? And can we put EV charging stations in all gasoline stations?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that question, Dr. Manino. Yes, Uni Oil continues to support cleaner energy, and we are not stopping with the two stations that we have in Metro Manila. We are already in the planning stage of putting at least possibly two more outside of the city. No, so again, this is to encourage people to go transition to EVs, not just for weekend drives, no, but really to transition to a mainstream use. No, this should not be seen as just a toy, no, that you can drive short distance, but you're afraid to use outside of city limits. No, EV cars can be charged at home. Almost all EV cars come with a self charger, but if the owners will see this as just a short-term benefit, they will not transition and look at really changing and letting go of their fuel vehicles. No, so yes, we have. Please stand by, and we will announce to the public the next opening. So we have we have a few coming within the next year. Can EV chargers? Can all gas stations be locations for EV chargers? The quick answer is, from a public perspective, it looks like it is very ideal because you have a wide frontage. It's along the main thoroughfare. People can just come in, but there are safety regulations. No, we can just put EVs if we want, but if we do not observe the safety distance limits, then you are putting together a source of ignition and the fuel fumes, no, that might mix together with the ambient air to create a very dangerous situation, no, to our residential areas, commercial areas, and to the riding public. No, so as long as the safety distances are available, I think the short answer is maybe the bigger stations. The stations with the bigger space probably can have distance requirements, no, that can be met, and not all gas stations are suitable for to become EV charging stations.
Okay, so thanks very much, Noel. So we're looking forward to more EV charging stations in your fueling stations. Okay. It's good to know that questions are coming from all over the region. We have one from Malaysia, from Mr. Zuil Azar Ibrahim. I think this one will be best asked to the Department of Energy. What will be the charging standards Philippines will adopt for DC fast charger and for AC charging? Is Director Aquino around? Okay, so we'll just go back to that question later. Okay. Okay, this is a question for Miss Tracy again, but I think Union Oil can also answer this. How do you see changes happen? Should the charger providers be the same party who currently operate gas stations?
Sorry, come again. Could you help to repeat
Yeah,
the
okay.
question?
I'm also trying to, okay. So I think the question is, should your charger provider be the same party as who currently operates gas stations? Like, is it ideal to have fueling stations also operating gasoline stations? I think that question also goes for Union Oil. Yeah. Yes, Ms. Tracy?
So the question is, should the gasoline operator also be the operator of the EV charging points? Is that the
Yes,
question?
yes.
Okay. So from our perspective, and also this building a lot of experience we've seen in other markets, actually, it doesn't matter that much is who's the provider. Yeah, it's also for us, it's about the where's the customer needs, as we shared in the earlier slides, because the EV charging is really across all the segments, right? We have the private passenger vehicles, we have the fleet, and we also have the heavy duty vehicles. So it's also about when the whole society is start adapting the EV charging over time, it's about where and when they need charging. And then with these needs, we'll see there could be different charging model, right? So we have charging at home, we have the charging at destination, being the shopping mall, office, or the fleet depot, and then we could also have the charging at the current gasoline station, which is any of the EV user can drive in, plug in, and charge and go. So I think it's more of the matter of where the different solution providers can serve the service at the moment where customer need it and when they need it. And for this point, I do see the typical energy operator like us has the advantage to play because we know have with the existing gasoline network, it already provides the convenience to serve the customer when they need it. And I think this is also where we can provide a portfolio good mix of the allocation that could serve the different needs through the cooperation. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Tracy. Noel, you might want to add something.
I think Miss Tracy gave a very comprehensive answer. But if I may just add, no, I think the question is a very good question. It does not have to be the existing gas station dealer that will be the operator of the EV charging station. No? I guess there are two questions that need to be answered. First is that, will there be interested parties to actually run the EV charging station, and will it be attractive for them? With the current situation where you do not see a very positive payback or a return on investment, all companies or those who would want to set it up would also be looking at, of course, the fixed cost, to operate this side by side with the gas station dealer. No? And if the cost will tell you that it's not going to be viable, then I guess the next question is there a synergy with the existing gas station dealer to adopt or to include it as like an additional fuel choice? For example, no, it's just like gasoline, diesel, and then electricity. So as long as, again, the safety parameters are observed, you can see that there are synergies with the existing dealers because they are trained, and the art of retail selling requires that customer interface. They just have to have the intervention that I guess Director Manny is spearheading. No, this is the competency development and the technology that this area has to be built. No, to train whether it's an existing dealer or a new businessman who wants to really focus and manage on the EV charging station business. So the quick answer is it does not have to be the existing station dealer.
Okay, thank you very much, Noel. So I guess the next question goes to everyone again. Regarding the average daily availability rate, charging flexibility, how much is the standard battery capacity, and how long is the life of the electric vehicle? Who wants to take the first shot? Who's driving an EV now? Okay, yeah, maybe Tracy, you can take the first shot. Yep.
Sorry, so I'm not an EV driver yet because the place I stayed has a very convenient connect to the public transportation. So I think there's the technology of the EV development is happening very fast. Yeah, specifically for the EV life cycle. I think the time range, the phasing out range is about 20-30 years based on what I read and what I know with the current OEM models. And I'm sure the one key factor is also the battery, right? And I think with the battery swap, the methodology and also the more technologies building in the OEMs, we do see there could be expansion, the longer cycle time of the EV, especially when the battery is replaceable.
Okay, thanks a lot. Noel, would you want to add something?
It depends on the vehicles. No, there are compact vehicles, small vehicles, medium-sized and large-sized vehicles. No, but from what I know, the typical would be about 50 kilovolts. No, kilowatt capacity. No, that's the typical. And the driving range. This is where it becomes a little bit sticky. Again, depends on what is declared and what is actual. No, but I guess it's something like 100 kilometers or so thereabouts, depending on the car. So really, the worry of an EV car owner would be, where can I reach, and can I still come back if there is no charging point there, or if the charging point does not have the compatible protocol for my vehicle, no? And I guess related to that one is that the concern of consumers now is that the rated battery distance, driving distance, the common experience, even in other countries, is that the actual experience is lower, than the rated distance, because of traffic or incline. The typical battery is computed based on a flat distance. No? So when you consider already the terrain, then that's where you see that the actual distance is much lower than the rated distance. No? With regards to battery life, I'm sorry, I'm not aware of the answer to that one.
Okay, thanks a lot, Noel. So maybe we can add on to that.
Manny,
Yes.
yeah, I think what our experience, we do have electric vehicles here, and I think we have can I mention a brand? Well, we have a subcompact vehicle and a SUV type, and what we've been using it for is city driving. So if you're talking about here in the Philippines, it's a national capital region. It takes us within BGC, Taguig, Central Business District is here, center, almost the center of Manila, the metropolis. It takes us all the way up north and then down south. Typically, in the charging takes us, the use is for 3 days and then we have to charge. At least that's based on our experience. We've not had the chance to drive it for city driving, extended city driving. I mean, outside the city environment. But I do take note of what Sir Noel did mention a while back, that what we're seeing is it's slightly lesser than we're trying to study further. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, but based on published ranges, normally it has actually increased in the past years. It's now normal to see published ranges of around 300 kilometers between charging. It used to be only around 100, then went up to 200, and now it's 300. And I think it's going to go up more with the new developments in battery technology, and also in terms of life. Okay, normally the batteries are guaranteed for 10 years. But of course, I would want to believe that it's going to last more than that. But at least you're assured for 10 years. But the new battery technologies are really amazing. So you would see like 30,000 charge cycles. It used to be only around 2,000, 3,000. So eventually we're expecting batteries to last together with the car. Okay, so I hope we answered your question. We have another question to Miss Tracy, but everyone could also answer this. Will the medium-term future see people charging their EVs more in their homes, malls instead of gasoline stations and petroleum outlet?
Thank you for the question. This is a good one. I would say again, back to the future, right? The trend, what we see, the trend of charging location, it really depends on many factors. It starts from the infrastructure, such as the availability of charging points, right? Where we build the charging points in the first place, and also the grid capacity. That at what stage the grid will have the abundance capacity to support the charging, especially when we talk about high performance, the high kilowatt fast charging in the future. Also depends on the cost of charging, right? Different location has the different cost implication, and also depends on the speed of the urbanization and where does people live and people's moving range, and also the lifestyle. An ideal mix of the charging location, it should be the mix that fits the pace of society and the customer needs development. So the transition from IC to BEV is not just a car. Many people think, oh, I'm just my next car or my first car, should I buy the BEV or IC? But actually, it is the change of the lifestyle. It's the lifestyle for many people. It offers more options and convenience for people to choose the best way to recharge. And then the different charging locations has different pros and cons to fill the specific needs per customer. So for example, the home charging normally offers the best availability and then cost in usual cases, right? When you come home, you just plug in, and then with the smart charging technology, it may also pick up the less peak season, peak hours for charging. But it, of course, obviously, it requires the landed private property, and it also requires the installation license, and then the owner will have to do the own maintenance in many cases. And whereas the shopping mall charging gives you the flexibility to make use of the time. If I go shopping or I will go watch a movie, I can plug in and charge. But it usually has the limited charging slots, especially during the peak hours. And then if you look at the charging at the gasoline station, it offers convenience to the customer and the fast charging. If you talk about the 175 or 180 kilowatts charging DC charging, it can charge within 10 minutes, a couple of minutes, but it doesn't come as free. So as you can see, the EV mobility solution provider, our aim is really to provide a consistent, reliable, safe, and convenient charging experience for customers, no matter where they are and when they want to charge.
Okay, thank you very much. Anuel, would you want to add something?
The sharing of Miss Tracy is very complete already, you know. But I will try to add another perspective. Basically, the whole I agree with Miss Tracy that it all evolves around the customer journey. So it depends on the behavior of the customer. You know? So the charging behavior starts, of course, from home, you know, the customer journey, and of course that is the natural default, you know, of where people will already charge their EVs while they're sleeping before leaving, you know? Just like charging your phone. So that is a natural behavior already that will be very difficult to change, no? And we should expect that to happen. No? So when they travel, the next stop would probably the place of work, no? And that is the next natural place where you can leave your car while working and leave it plugged and charging. So that is the natural next step. The others fall short in comparison to these two. No? Because the next ones would be, of course, fueling up, and you don't fuel up every day. No? So just like gasoline, you fuel up probably once a week or maybe twice a week, no, at most, probably. No, the next one. So really, gas stations are there for an emergency recharge or emergency refuel when you don't have any more choice. No, but again, unlike fuel, people never had the choice before, because you can only procure fuel from a gas station. Right now, the outlook is that the EV charging network providers will just expect only the emergency recharge. No? Now, the next one would also be the groceries, for example, where and the malls, where people will spend at least probably 2 hours, maybe watching a movie if the COVID pandemic has already blown over, no, or go shopping. So that's another opportunity that follows the customer journey. Now, the need states also figures very well. No? So just like cooking at home, a lot of people prefer cooking at home because it's cheapest, they feel, especially those with big families. So just like cooking, the natural big chunk of the market is that people will cook at home. But some people feel that it's not worth the hassle of cooking at home. They prefer just to drive by and buy food on the way. So there might be that segment as well that is not an emergency recharge, but because of lifestyle, they prefer to just, you know, visit a charging station and plug into a fast charger and just charge it for what Tracy said, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, instead of waiting 8 hours of charging at home. No? So again, it depends on the lifestyle and the customer journey. So I guess the whole industry will be formed depending on the choices that the consumers make with regards to supporting their mobility choices.
Thank you very much, Noel. I think you just validated the findings of an EU study some few years ago that they're saying that in Europe, around 80 to 85% or even 90% of the vehicle range are charged either at home or using slow chargers in parking lots. And only actually 10% are charged in DC fast charging stations. Okay, we're running out of time, but I think it's very important that I ask this question to the Department of Energy, to Director Aquino. Is there a timeline on when EV will be feasible for general public to start to switch to electric vehicles in the Philippines?
Well, the time is now. I did mention in the presentation that the time is now. That the transition has already begun, whether the Philippines likes it or not. So the question right now for government is to make sure that there are the enabling structures to bring in the investments, the competencies, the people for that perfect recipe of scaling up EV. Hopefully, with the passage of the EV bill, we will see that. In terms of the timeline, we're looking at the very least by 2040, we will be at 10%. But the reality is we have to do it faster than 2040 because by 2035, depending, or 2030, depending on who you're talking to, the internal combustion engine production will effectively cease. And the Philippines will have no other recourse. So we will want to be that last bastion for ICE vehicles. I don't think so. So government is very much committed in making EV mainstream now rather than later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sorry that we will not be able to cover all questions. That's all the time that we have for today. Thank you very much to our speakers for joining us today and to everyone around the world who tuned in. You can still watch a recording of this session. We will upload it here on the AEUDW website. Thank you also to Informa Markets, Phil Energy, and Energy Federation Electric Vehicle Associations, the Electric Vehicle Association, the ASEAN Federation of Electric Vehicle Associations, Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines for organizing this session. This day, as we'll continue with the second session of the ASEAN Electric Vehicle Outlook Conference after this short break. Okay, thank you.
Welcome to the second session of the ASEAN Electric Vehicle Outlook Conference. Today's virtual event is organized by Informa Markets, Phil Energy, Asian Federation of Electric Vehicle Associations, and the Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines. To actively participate in today's session, you may click on the Webinar Assistant button, which you may see in the conference theater. If you have questions to our speakers, please type them in at the box located at the Questions tab. To send a message to the rest of the audience, you may send them in at the box located at the Chat tab. For any assistance that you may need, please send a request via the Help tab and our team will assist you. This session will be moderated by Dr. Yosapong Launwal. Dr. Yosapong is one of the founding members, advisor, and honorary chairman of Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, promoting electric vehicle technology to use less fossil fuel and reduce air pollution in Thailand. Currently, he is appointed as an assistant to the President for Sustainability and also works as Associate Professor in Mechanical Engineering and as Head of Mobility and Vehicle Technology Research Center at King Mongkut's University of Technology, Thonburi in Thailand. In recent years, he has served on a number of committees at both government and society level on a voluntary basis. For instance, he had been a subcommittee member on regulatory control of air pollution from motor vehicles under the Pollution Control Committee National Environment Board since 2015. He is also appointed as a member of the National Electric Vehicle Policy Committee, Office of the Prime Minister. He holds a PhD in Mechanical Engineering from Imperial College London. Please welcome Dr. Yosapong Launwal.
Thank you. Thank you for joining today's section. I'm sure we are interested about the electric vehicles in Southeast Asia or ASEAN. With the population of 655 million in ASEAN, I think it's a huge market opportunities for the automotive industry. If you look at last year, the sale of ASEAN market of the passenger and commercial vehicle was totally 2.45 million units. Unfortunately, it's dropped 1 million due to, as you know, the COVID-19 pandemics, right? But let me compare to the European market, which have 448 million people. Last year, the EU passenger car sale market was also reduced 20.7%, but they can sell up to 9.9 million units, right? Which the drop of about 3 million compared to last year. So you can see that it's a huge market compared to in ASEAN. But as you see, the population of the ASEAN, probably that we have quite opportunity. And when we look at the number of the battery EV sale in Europeans, is almost increasing 50% from last year, and they can sell almost 500,000 units here in Europe. I think with more battery EV model available, vehicle and battery performance have been improved with the lower cost. The sales of battery EV across the world is more than 2.5 million units now. I think we have a large room of the ASEAN's market to develop the automotive business, especially the EV market here. So I think today will be a good opportunity that I will bring you guys to meet with a leader from a different country in ASEAN. I'm sure that you will be excited now. So I would like to ask our panelists to introduce yourselves and what is you are doing in the EV business now. Maybe we could start with Mr. Edmund Agans, the president of the Asian Federation EV Association, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Dr. Yosapong. I'm Edmund Araga, President of ASEAN Federation of Electric Vehicle Associations, and currently the President of Electric Vehicle Association of the Philippines. And it's my pleasure to be an honor to be here on this event.
Thank you. Can we go to the next one? Mr. Telesio?
Hi, good morning, Dr. Yosapong, and good morning to the audience who have joined us today for this session. I am the president of the EV Association of Singapore and also the regional manager for Green Lots, which is a company that is part of the Shell Group, dealing with the EV charging infrastructure.
Thank you very much. Can we go to Kun Kisda Utamot, please, President from EV Thailand.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Yusupong. It's a pleasure for me to be here in this session. So welcome to all the audience. My name is Krisana Utamot. I'm the president of the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or as we call EVAT. And I'm also working for a BNU Group in Thailand, responsible for the corporate communication. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Next, the Dato Dennis Chur.
Hi, I'm Dennis. I'm Dennis Chua. I'm currently the president EV Association of Malaysia. I'm also a founder of a company which already started 20 years ago developing lithium batteries for electric vehicles, and also a founder company of developing electric two-wheelers. So thank you.
Thank you. And the last one, Professor Tuan from Vietnam, please.
Hello, I'm Tuan. I'm chairman of the University Council, Hanoi University of Science and Technology. I'm very happy to join this meeting today to share with the update information about the electric vehicle development in Vietnam. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank you, all the panelists. I think, as you can see, we have very friendly speaker and panelists here today. Let me start with allow Mr. Edmund Araga, the president of the Asian Federation EV Association, to be start with and give the presentation to everyone, and then we go to another different country, and then probably we have about the last 10 minutes to have some discussion, and we would be happy and welcome the question from the audience too. So please start, Mr. Edmund.
Thank you, Dr. Yosafong. Again, good morning, everyone. On behalf of Asian Federation of Electric Vehicle Associations, we would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present before you on this event, our advocacy in promoting the industry on a regional level. Request for there. Allow me to share the context of my presentation. Next slide, please. These are the contents of my presentation. Next slide. Primarily, AFIVA was initially formed way back 2017, wherein Philippines was then the host country. Through the collaboration of EVAP and Board of Investments under Department of Trade and Industry, we came up with the first ASEAN EV Summit with the participation of different association members, namely EVAM, EVAP, EVAS, and EVAT. That is from Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Our main purpose of forming this alliance is to elevate the EV industry on a regional approach through encouragement and facilitate exchange of information, promoting transfer of technology from within, collaboration and cooperation with the other international bodies, and collectively represent industry players to the government. Establish and support regulatory alignment on EV standards, and to foster cooperation through joint ventures and help EV industry players in the region to explore market opportunities and carry out training, education, and publicity programs of the industry. Next slide, please. According to World Health Organization, concentrations of fine particulate matter, mean indicator levels of 2.5 microns of diameter in urban areas, smog is a big issue. In fact, a heavy smog in Bangkok happened, forced hundreds of school closures 2 years ago. Next slide, please. Energy demand in the Southeast Asia reports. With the growth of demand in the region, as shown on graph, it's forecast by sector through its source factoring in the electrification, energy intensity, and carbon intensity. Next slide, please. Smart mobility in smart cities. Accessibility is the key to define such smart cities, It is composed of connectivity through Internet of Things. To live conveniently and make our lives easy, direct access on all daily routines is the new trend. With the use of EVs as smart cities, connectivity as mobility is the key. Next slide, please. With EVs, the advent of vehicle to everything is possible, whether it could be vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to device, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to home, vehicle to grid, and vehicle to infrastructure. Next slide, please. With its technology, electricity demand can be controlled. Therefore, higher efficiency in electricity in production is realized. Used batteries from EVs can be used as a second life energy storage for homes and buildings. Hence, more renewable energy sources can be utilized. Next slide, please. There are three key points on establishing smart cities. These were higher quality of life, competitive economy, sustainable environment. With these key points, urban systems, through integrated master planning and development with dynamism and adapted urban governance. With such developments, 6 areas are being covered: civil and social, health and well-being, safety and security, quality environment, result, the built infrastructure, industry, and innovations. Next slide, please. As seen on graph, the current EV deployments available chargers around the world, wherein China has a great share of the pie, followed by US and Europe. Next slide, please. This next slide summarizes comparison of different classifications of vehicles from ICE or internal combustion engines to plug-in hybrids to fuel cells to BEVs or battery electric vehicles, backtracking from 2015 up to its projection on year 2040. You will notice the shifting behavior of consumers from ICE to electric. Next slide, please. On this presentation, it shows the vehicle stock scenario plotted 2019 to 2030. PLDVs or passenger light duty vehicles are being expected to dominate the market as compared to light commercial vehicles, buses, trucks with non-stocks of BEVs than PHEVs. Next slide, please. An approximate target deployment of about 1.3 million EVs on Southeast Asia alone by 2035, based on the per country drawing board. Next slide, please. Currently, collected data from ASEAN region were posted. On the left is the annual production on fuel types in units per country, while on the right is the current deployed BEVs on 4-wheel, 3-wheel, and 2-wheel. Thailand has the highest deployed 4 wheels. Philippines dominated by e-trikes or 3 wheels, while Malaysia is on 2 wheels. But later on, you would see Vietnam has the highest, as reported later on by Dr. Tuan. Posted on the slide, the different policies and regulations per country on the next slide. There indicates the regulations and framework of each and every countries that we shared for proper benchmarking. And next slide, please. In conclusion, ASEAN Smart Cities Network was established, which aims to improve quality of life, build competitive economy, and promote sustainable environment in ASEAN. An increasing trend of EVs on the road around the world is observed. As a result, more public charging points and charging stations are installed. In Southeast Asia, the target for EVs on the road is set approximately 1.3 million units by 2035, with strong commitment in many countries through supportive policies. V2G or vehicle-to-grid concept is a promising technology to utilize EVs as a virtual power plants in smart grids in order to stabilize electricity production and increase grid efficiency. Thank you, and that's all for my presentation.
Thank you. That would be interesting. for the audience, I just to remind you again that please save your question to our speaker for the Q&A section. You can send them later in the Q&A box after their presentation. Thank you. So let me just go to the next speaker, Mr. Terrestrius, the president of EV Association Singapore. Are you ready?
Yes, Dr. Yosapong. Thanks for the introduction. Can we have the first slide, please? All right. So and thank you for the opportunity to share. I would be happy to contribute our quick updates to this forum about some of the EV policy changes in Singapore and also some of the industry developments that are taking place. So as you can see, you might probably have heard that Singapore has a target to phase out the petrol and diesel vehicles by 2040. So in line with that, we will be moving towards a cleaner and more sustainable transportation system with the cars either fully electrified or electrified in some form. So that will include also hybrid vehicles. Based on the information that Mr. Edmund have shared in his slides, it is very clear that the trends for electrification is only going to speed up, right? And we expect that the battery electric vehicles is going to play a major part of this transition, and most vehicles by 2040 will be electric. Now, earlier this year, the Singapore government has also formed a new agency called the National EV Centre that is set up to promote wider EV adoption in line with Singapore's vision for all vehicles to run on cleaner energy. So in addition to planning for this, in addition to this target, there is also plans for the expansion of the nationwide EV charging infrastructure to ensure that the market is able to develop the infrastructure in line with the EV regulations and standards, and such that we have a strong and robust EV ecosystem in the country. And by that, as we all know, EV ecosystem is not just about charging. It's also involved servicing, battery, taking care of the battery second life, and many other services related to that. So we want to ensure that we are able to have the ecosystem necessary to allow mass adoption of electric vehicles. So given the strong commitment from the government, businesses like Hyundai and Tesla are much more willing to invest into this, growing this new e-mobility industry. So for Hyundai, they have announced last year for the $400 million innovation center that will be producing 30,000 EVs every year by 2025, and also plans to sell about 5,000 to 6,000 of these cars locally within Singapore while exporting the rest. And the more recent development is for a Tesla service center that they will be set up in Singapore. This will be one of the first service centers in Southeast Asia, and it is also a very encouraging sign that the big players and the technology players are willing to invest and operate in this part of the world. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so this data is taken from the Singapore Ministry of Transport, and that's from 2020. It shows the degree of progress that we still have, right? Because we have very big ambitions, but getting from where we stand today, the total plug-in vehicle population, which includes plug-in hybrids and the fully electric vehicles, is currently standing about 2,000 vehicles, and that is probably about 0.5% of the total EV population of the overall vehicle population of Singapore. So we do have a very long way to go, and hopefully that can change over the next few years, right, as we start to accelerate towards EV adoption. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, so here are some of the incentives that were announced to help the industry transit towards a more sustainable transportation system. And as we all know, the vehicle population in Singapore can be controlled by a 10-year certificate of entitlement system, or COE for short. So we can be expecting a gradual phase out and the last of the internal combustion engines to be sold by 2030. And every new vehicle sold by 2031 must be electrified in some way or another. So 5 of these initiatives are required five of these incentives are designed to make this happen. There's the early EV adoption rebate, vehicle emission schemes, revised road tax, and also the EV charging infrastructure. So most of these incentives were unchanged from last year, with the exception of EV charging infrastructure, which I will elaborate a little bit about. So for this year's budgetary announcement during in February, Singapore government actually doubled their targets. They had previously targeted for 28,000 EV chargers to be nationwide by 2030. However, that number has been more than doubled to 60,000. And this will comprise of both 40,000 in public car parks and also 20,000 in private premises. So these are this is obviously an example of the close private and public partnerships that have to take place in order for EV charging to be deployed sustainably. So both the private and public sector are expected to contribute towards this goal by having infrastructure deployed at properties like condominiums, workplaces, commercial developments, and industrial parks. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay. So this these are some of the summary key takeaways of how the incentives will speed up the adoption in Singapore. So I will just move to the next slide. Okay. So now this is my my last slide, and as an update, in Singapore, the EVs are still seen as a very niche market. We have about 2,000 EV population of about 2,000 EVs out of a total of 950,000 vehicles. So it's very, very small percentage. So how do we get from that less than 1% EV sales today to 100% within 10 years? It's going to be a very long-term play, and there are certain things that the industry has to focus on, right? So for the automakers, currently there is a slight improvement on that front. Last year we had about 12 EV models. This year we are looking at closer to 20 EV models that are offered in the market, and but we are still seeing very few models for goods vehicles and motorcycles, right? So these are some of the growing areas in which the dealerships are looking very closely, and especially for two-wheelers, because the charging for two-wheelers are especially challenging, given that the worldwide standard is also has not really gravitated towards a certain form of charging, and we are updating the standards in Singapore to ensure that the two-wheeler infrastructure is deployed. It is being considered. And at the same time, we are also on the other end of the spectrum. We're also looking at pushing the limits of fast charging to look at how we can enable high-powered charging, or HPC chargers, to be deployed at selected areas across Singapore. And this will really alleviate the range anxiety problems that some of the first-time buyers will have. All right. So with the fleets and business owners, they would also be having the vehicle emission scheme extended to them. So businesses with aging fleet could potentially benefit from these schemes in the long run with the OPEX savings from the EV fleet vehicles to more than offset the additional CapEx investments that are required. Okay, so I will go quickly to the next one, property developers. Right now, the global outlook for COVID is still very much affecting the real estate industry, and this is going to be expecting in over the next 1 year or so, until at least we have a good assurance of the vaccination processes. So while this is going to play out in the long run, we believe that the properties and estate developers, they have a lot to gain from e-mobility, by which they are able to attract tenants, visitors, retail footfalls based on the EV charging needs of the the new vehicles that are coming in. So this will be a key area for them to focus in, and this plays in well with the Singapore plans, because the Singapore government has plans for certain housing estates to become EV ready, and by EV ready we mean that the infrastructure is set up in a way that they can deploy and scale up the EV chargers as demand ramps up. And the last part is also, of course, for the utility companies that with, as I mentioned just now about fast charging, high power charging, these are the areas whereby the limits are constantly being pushed, such that the offering from the utility companies and the energy companies are able to provide a more convenient deployment of EV charging, a wider spectrum. So there will be AC, overnight charging for most of the users, and then fast charging for on-the-go users, and high-powered charging for the very few instances when you need a lot of power in a short amount of time. All right. So with that, I have come to the end of my presentation for Singapore.
Thank you, Teres. I always find out that Singapore is I think it's a very good country to promote the EVs. Right. Okay. I think we keep the question now here. So as I remind the audience that you can send the questions after each presentation. So we have another 3 speakers to catch up. Now the next one, I would like to Mr. Kista Utamo to give the presentation, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Yosapong. So it's always a pleasure for me to speaking on behalf of the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, or as we call AEUDW. So if we go to the first slide, please. Today, of course, we're talking about promoting electromobility in the ASEAN region. And of course, in my presentation, we focus particularly about Thailand. Let's walk into the topic that I would like to present to you today. So next one, please. A little bit on the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand that I'd like to share with you. Next, we will talk about the XEV status in Thailand and the outlook. Okay, next one. Yep. Basically, the Electric Vehicle Association of Thailand, we were founded since 2015, and actually our moderator, Dr. Yosapong, is our founder of the association, and he is serving as our honorary president until today. So basically, our goal is to promote the usage of the EV in Thailand, to reduce the air pollution, and to improve energy efficiency in the transport sector. And let's look at the next one, who we are. So basically, we have over 270 members coming from corporate members and individual members. And out of these 270 members, we have 30 committees whom we divided into different divisions working on different topics. So for example, we divide into 4 working groups, mainly on the R&D support measures, also on the academic support, also on industry support, and also on communication and public relations support. So the good thing about us is that we have a good balance of the our experts from the academic fields as well as from the industry fields. And therefore, this is, I would say, it is a small but very well connected communities within EV association in Thailand. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite any one of you, if you are interested to expand your business in Thailand, to invest in Thailand, or any kind of business related to EV, please feel free to join us. We always welcome new members. All right, so let's move to the next one, please. Let's look at the XEV status in Thailand, where we are today. Okay, next one. This is to show you the current status of the XEV accumulative registration here in Thailand. If we take it from the Land Transport Department registration data from 2017 up to recently in the end of April in 2021. In total, if you look on the left-hand side, it is the combination of the hybrid and plug-in hybrid vehicles of all types. We have over 200,000 units, and we have about 7,250 of the fully electric vehicle of all types. And on the right-hand side, we break it down into by platform of the vehicles. So for the battery electric vehicle, of that 7,200, we have about 2,770 cars and about 4,100 electric motorcycle. There are some electric tuk-tuk as well, and there are some electric bus as well, but still a small portion. And let's look on the next one. The next one is the annual registration. How do we see the growth of the hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and also the electric vehicle year by year? So in principle, if you look at the year 2018, the green bar is basically the BEV or the fully electric vehicle, which is only about 325 units back then. But within a year, we jumped to, let's say, 1,572. So that is basically about 380% increase in 1 year. Based on the fact that we have the availability of the MG ZS EV, which is a very popular model here with a price range close to 1 million baht. So it is the affordable price, and people, are very interested in the EV. And we have the figure jump again in the 2020 to nearly 3,000 units for the electric vehicle of our platform. And this year, in the first 4 months, we already have about 1,600 of the electric vehicle here. And if we were to break it down by vehicle platform, then we have about 588 car and about 1,000 electric motorcycle. Let's move to the next one. So now that we're talking about the number of electric vehicle population, of course, we have to talk about the charging station as well. In Thailand, if we look at the statistic of our charging station in public, we have in total around 2,177 sockets availability. It means that we have the availability to charge 2,177 electric cars on the different parking spots. And at this existing in the 641 locations nationwide. So as you can see from the chart here, we have so many providers from the biggest one, which is the company called Energy Absolute or EA, with over 1,600 charging spots nationwide, and quite a number of the DC quick charger that they offer to the public as well. Then we have a lot of the, let's say, the power authority from Metropolitan Power Authority, Provincial Electric Authority, and other providers who offer public charging station on their own platform. So this is one of the tasks where we look at the quite a big and wide network of the charging provider. We want to ask ourselves, how can we make sure that our customer in the future can find it easy to use the parking spot everywhere? So next one, please. So we come to the project which we call the Charging Consortium Initiative by AEUDW. So in principle, we request or we ask our providers, the major one, to join us with the MOU signings last year to agree that we should provide the charging network where our customer or the buyer of EV can access any machine using the same card or the same application that they normally use in their own subscription. So it's similar concept like the ATM machine that we use everywhere. This is a project that AEUDW has been running in collaboration with our 11 partners. And this year we are now on the processing phase of the data transfer testing. And we hope that by the year end, we should be able to test the billing and payment settlement. So it is quite a big project that we are currently running at the moment, but we believe that it would make it a lot easier for our EV user to charge the vehicle anywhere, anytime. Next one, please. Okay, so let's look at the outlook and new opportunities that Thailand would have in mind. This is the target for the, which is set by the National EV Policy Committee, backed by the government. So we have already seen the target with the different types. We have, first of all, the ZEV usage target. So zero emission vehicle usage target is set by the year 2022, 2025, 2030 at 50%, and then to reach 100% within 2035. And for the ZEV production target, it is a bit different. We still aim to have partly the production for ZEV and partly for ICE, which is aiming for export. So within 2030, we aim to achieve about 30% of the ZEV production in Thailand, and to have about 50% of the ZEV production in the year 2035. This is the target that we have seen so far by the government. And now the most important is how can we drive our support scheme, how we can drive the implementation in order to achieve this ambitious target. So let's move to the next one. Looking at the at the projection of the charging station in Thailand, we estimate that it would be about 160,000 public charging station points by 2030 in order to accommodate the target that we just saw. And for us, we see this as a big opportunity to see the EV, let's say, supply equipment costs that would be involved in this investment, which is accounting to about 22 billion Thai baht. So in US dollar term, which is about 688 million US dollar investment into the EV charging equipments in the coming period. I would say this is a big investment plan by the private and government sector to look into it. And I believe that this is going to drive the confidence for the EV buyer as well in the coming time, making sure that they can charge the car on the public charging points. Next one, please. There has been a lot of the discussion about the coming of the BEV production, and it would cause consequences to the existing ICE production market. Particularly to the part and component supplier. But what we see from data analysis from Frost and Sullivan, they forecast that in the current market value of the parts and component of the automotive in Thailand, it is about 1,600 billion Thai baht, or roughly about 52 billion US dollar. With that, they expect that with the BEV market coming, or BEV production coming to Thailand, there would be increment of the market value. Of course, there will be impact from those automotive suppliers who have to have impact from the stoppage of ICE production. But in general, when we combine with the more future growth of the BEV, and of course on the other component supplier to come on board, then we see the market value increase by 2030. So climb up to over 2,070 billion Thai baht in the end. So we believe that the direction that we are driving toward electrification in Thailand is the right step and the right way to pave the way for the future. Next one, please. So in summary of the business opportunity in Thailand that I would like to conclude, we currently have the National EV Policy Committee, and they have been formed with the 4 subcommittee. So we are now working on various demand incentives, tax support scheme, and other and many support measures. Even our association is also supporting the association and also the policy committee as well. And looking at the demand of the battery cell, battery control unit, of course, the total value would be very high by 2030. So this would be my last presentation slide for Thailand. ขอบคุณมากครับ
Thank you, Khun Krishna. That's very impressive presentation. Shall we go to the next one from Malaysia? Danto Dennis, are you ready?
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Good afternoon. And can I open my first slide? It's about, overall, we are talking about the whole electrifying drive, and particular, I will just share on Malaysia's standpoint, which is basically always start from the policy and also the ecosystem, and the most importantly is the future. Next. So if you look at Malaysia, we started with having this EV agenda where it comes with the National Green Technology Policy way back in year 2006. In 2006, with the directions of the Prime Minister, that we already having a so-called to support the electric vehicle, whereby Malaysia, you can see that the industry, the semiconductor, and also the electronics, the factories, we have the multinationals where it's already encouraging all these companies and also SME to look into electric vehicle or automotive manufacturing of the parts. That is why we see that in 2006 to 2009, the ministry, especially the manufacturing, the industry and the trade industry, were focusing into development the policy to enhance the automotive supply market. So from there, in 2009 to 2014, we open up to invite investment from foreign companies to look into expanding of the ecosystem. And from 2009 to 2014, the policy of the government welcoming the foreign investment, and the government's already providing like grants to encourage R&D, which is the grants to increase the developments of like the battery, to increase the developments of motor, and also to increase the development of the whole ecosystem. So in 2009 to 2014, not only providing grant, but the government have came out with the policy, especially on the two-wheelers. We have the electric two-wheelers and also on the electric four-wheelers. We are the earliest one who came out with the electric two-wheelers policy, which is Malaysia government emphasized on, we call it as a L3 category. Which L3 category policy, it's actually driving on the safety aspect. L3 category and L1 category policy, Malaysia adopt L3 category is because of the safety aspect, which the safety is involvement of the magnetic interference, is involving of the speeds of the bike, and also the range of the bike, which is coming to the battery. So with that policy in place, the direction is clear for the industry to look into what are the R&D to be involved. So from there, 2014 to 2020, not only on the policy of the two-wheelers, there is also a policy for companies who want to be able to involve into the hybrid cars. So you always, the industry, the ministry is always driven by policy, which is from 2014 to 2020, they encourage companies to develop a hybrid cars, to assemble or to manufacture the hybrid cars in Malaysia, to get the incentive if they able to do it in Malaysia. So from there, we see that with this policy in place, we see that the hybrid cars have started to roll out on the road, which is from 10 years ago. We already have hybrid cars. Until today, it's already achieving something about 30,000 units of hybrid cars. So with this 15 years, with the policy from the ministry is to enhance the manufacturing sector, to go into the R&D, research and development, especially on the battery, and going forward on the new national automotive policy, which is going to announce soon. But I'm just showing that what are the new policy that the government is looking at, but it's not been approved yet. But I always like to share that what are the previous policy that we have, and also going forward, what are the policy that we are looking forward to. Next slide, please. So with the Paris Agreement that Malaysia have participated, is to look into the reduction of the greenhouse gas emission, and to also achieve on Malaysia low carbon mobility our blueprint, which is going forward until 2021 to 2030, 2030, to shift to carbon emission-based vehicle, which is to provide more incentive on the taxation, introduction of the fuel levy. We also will look into the import and import duty, import excise duty exemption, especially on the battery, either the plug-in or the BEV. Of course, today we are very much looking forward to go into the BEV, battery electric vehicle, rather than so much in the plug-in vehicle, which already been done 10 years ago. And also the target would be more onto the charging station, which is the AC charging station and also the DC charging station. And there is also a government of a local state government have increased their participations on 2030 to roll out the electric vehicle on the road. So not only the federal government, and it's already having a state government participate into the EV going forward. Next. So today, just to share that we have a government agency which already put up EV charging stations. The EV charging station as of today is about 500 charging stations. I know that it's not enough. It's always chicken and egg, whether there is a car to use it or the charging station should put it first. So, but today we already have 500 plus charging stations, and looking forward to actually get more car manufacturers to actually able to come to Malaysia to be able to locally assemble it. In order to get the incentive from the government, we are looking for a local assembler rather than a fully imported vehicle. Next. So where our sales association, we're actually looking forward to promote the two wheels, three wheels in the ASEAN country, but Malaysia is on the two wheels. Going forward for EV, we are aware that it's a company where do not probably need to own the assets. It's a vehicle whereby based on subscription base or either a leasing base, and where the addressing to this market is pretty huge. You can see not only Malaysia, in the whole ASEAN country. Next. So we're actually based on before when we are working with the government to provide all these incentives to encourage companies to go into electric vehicle to reduce the carbon footprint. On top of that, we are encouraging all the starting from the public listed company. To public listed company can actually comply to a ESG measurement. ESG measurement is part of the electric vehicle drive, where today we have about 800 over companies, public listed company in Malaysia. There's only 75 listed companies that comply to the ESG measure. We are encouraging the listed companies to put in more efforts on putting compliant ESG, so that we can able to continue to be able to reduce our carbon footprint. So this is overall that Malaysia's working towards the electric vehicle. We need the government to come up with a policy, and also to have a private sector or our public sector company to look into the carbon footprint. Next. So that's all from me. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to share it for Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Well, last but not least, Professor Duans, are you ready? Please start your presentation.
Yes, I'm ready. And please allow me to share my screen. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can see it. If you can make it last, last it, yeah.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. That's
okay. Yeah, let's say that because as I am the last presenter, So the time is very, very short, I think. So hope that I will try to finish my presentation in time. I will show you about the electric vehicle development status in Vietnam. And in order to move to that, I will give you the overview of Vietnam transport sector, the sustainable development in the transport sector, and finally, the policies for e-mobility deployed. Go to overview of Vietnam transport sector. Let's say that, it is in the period of strong development stage of the transport sector in Vietnam, and the average growth rate of the transportation is 10% per year in all modes, and the number of road motor vehicles is increasing rapidly with about 14% per year for car and 9% for motorcycle and mopeds. And in here we can see that, for the road transport sectors, the low public transport share, it is only 14% for Hanoi and 10% for Ho Chi Minh cities. And the share of motorcycles in circulation is still the highest. It share 92% nationwide and 84% for Hanoi. And there is a drastic transition stage between the mode of transport. And as you can see in the chart below here, it is the change in passenger transport mode in the period of 2010 to 2019. And it shows that there is a strong increase in aviation, about 16.2% passenger and 10% in freight. However, the road transport still holds the largest proportion. And to promote the e-mobility in the transport sector in Vietnam, it is very important that the sustainable development in this transport sector is highly appreciated in Vietnam. There are three strategies that it is very important for the e-mobility in Vietnam. It is the national climate change strategy, the national sustainable development strategy, and the national green growth strategy. And according to these strategies, there are also many action plans and promulgate implementation plan are released in the national levels, sectoral levels, and provincial levels. And let me go to the electric vehicle market in Vietnam. There are two categories. It is the for electric wheelers vehicles market. And you can see in this chart that, before 2019, it is fully imported. And, the number of electric four-wheelers here, it is I would say that it is the simple electric four-wheelers that used for the tourist areas and golf court, for example, and the number is increasing. And since 2019, VinFast, it is a domestic car maker, has already announced that it will bring electric car to the market, including e-buses. And at this moment, the e-buses already produced, and the pilot for the e-buses operation is now implementing in Ho Chi Minh cities. And I would say that from 2019, the domestic production for electric car is already, appear in Vietnam. And in this year, VinFast plan to have the electric car export to US and also produce in Vietnam. But I don't know if this schedule can be happen due to a lot of difficulty that caused by COVID-19 pandemics. And for the electric two-wheelers, before 2018, it is already fully imported. And since 2018, VinFast and also AEUDW manufacturer already produce electric two-wheeler in Vietnam. And the total number of the electric two-wheelers, including e-bike and e-motorbike, is about 2 million units, and it is increased very fast for the electric motorbike. However, the e-bike decreased, and the number of imported electric two-wheeler accounts only for 10%. And every year the electric two-wheeler manufacturer, assemble and import is about 250,000 vehicles. And in this chart, it is so that the e-motorcycle are forecasted to witness the fastest growth of about 19.1% in terms of fleet size during the periods of 2018 to 2024. And let I move to the policy for e-mobility deployed in Vietnam. In this chart, it is so all mode of electric vehicles, including two-wheelers, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, e-car, e-buses, and e-trucks that that already mentioned in the electric vehicle development in Vietnam. In terms of the government policies, central level and provincial levels, and the orientation, roadmap, incentive, and vehicle management. But I would say that at this moment, there is no roadmap for electric vehicle is available for Vietnam. And this table, it is the last table showing the integrating the e-mobility development in sustainable development strategies for some big cities. It is the output from one research that funded by JISS, and big cities in Vietnam have already investigated, and from many criteria for potential electric vehicle development for city levels, we found and already the government already nominate one city to initiate the electric vehicle development strategies and roadmap for the electric vehicle development. And Ho Chi Minh City is the first city that consider to develop the electric vehicle roadmap very soon. I hope that in this year or in early next year. And that's all for my presentation. And I will say that the potential for electric vehicle in Vietnam is very high, as the share of renewable energy sources in Vietnam is quite high. It is about 40% from the hydropower and about 10% from the renewable energies. And the renewable energy capacity is increasing, including the wind energy and also the ocean, the wind energy and the solar energy. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Duans. Wow. I think I have about 7 minutes for the Q&A questions. And I have seen some of the questions coming from the audience. I think I'd like to start with the first question that I can ask everyone, and please all the speaker and panelists could be able to answer all of it. I think the question is about what is the most barrier need to be addressed to develop EV in the ASEAN? Maybe all of you can answer for your own country. Maybe Mr. Edmunds, this time you represent the ASEAN, but you probably could talk about Philippines. Maybe start from you.
Okay, I'm now changing my other hat as the president of EVAP. So last month, the Senate has approved the electric vehicle and charging infrastructure bill which defines the mandates of the different concerned agencies in implementing the program, while at the same time providing the framework for the preferential policies and possibly some support for the growth of the EVs. These include, for example, the designation of certain public transport routes specifically for EVs, among others, which is expected to provide the demand to push forward the local manufacturing industry. We would, of course, however, still have to wait for the congressional version and marry the two before this signed into law. And just last week, the Land Transportation Office signed the much-awaited administrative order on the regulations on the usage, licensing, and registration of electric vehicles locally. This is expected to clarify all the questions on what vehicles can run where and what are the requirements. This removes all the uncertainties around it, and the public will now properly be guided on their purchase decisions, while at the same time clearing the way for the local manufacturing industry to plan out strategic product strategies. In 2018, the DTI EV policy study estimated that with the proper policies in place, we may see annual sales rising to 45,000 units annually and a total EV stock of about 300,000 by 2030. We would have to review this, though, relatively to the current developments, and expected these projections have been greatly affected by the pandemic situation.
Right. Okay. What about you, Mr. Calesius? What do you think about barrier in Singapore?
So thanks, Dr. Yosapong. I think that for us, the big challenge is, besides standardization and EV charging, of course, the big challenge is that the awareness, right? The consumer awareness of the models that are out there, the consumer awareness of what does it take for them to transition towards an electric vehicle. It's still pretty much missing. And I won't say that it's missing, but there's more work to be done. We have increased the awareness, and we have tried to provide announce. Actually, this year we have announced our first EV guide, Singapore EV guide, and we hope to make this an annual exercise for us to include all the EV models that are available in Singapore, the prices, the range, the specifications, and it's presented in a very easy to understand way, such that the customers will know exactly how their lifestyles will change, right? Or hopefully it doesn't have to change, right, when they adopt the electric vehicle. So having this awareness is going to be continuing mission for the EV Association and also for the Asia EV Federation, for us to constantly reach out beyond our own community. We have found that most of the wider community, there are still some misconceptions around with regards to electric vehicles, whether they are clean or not, whether they are safe or not. And these are exactly the kind of questions we have to think about when we are going mass market.
Thank you, Khun John. What do you think? What is a barrier in Thailand?
Yep. Thanks for the questions. I believe that for most of us consider to buy either the EV or the ICE car, we always thinking about the peace of mind. What can we gain as a confidence in buying the EV? Where can we charge the car, and how much and how long can the car run? So I believe that if we look at the technologies that we have all around today, their battery capacity and the efficiency has increased so much. We've seen vehicle with over 500 and 600 kilometers per one charge easily. So the technology, I wouldn't worry. But as each of the countries are seeing the development plan or the infrastructure or for the EV charging station, I believe this provides a lot of peace of mind for the buyers. And I believe this is the big plan for the government to support the increase of the charging network within the country. And of course, we talk about the charging consortium. This is one of the initiatives that I hope that in one day we can extend the charging consortium across border from Thailand to Malaysia, to Singapore, to Vietnam, and to other countries that our people, our EV buyer can use the same network or the same, let's say, roaming of the EV charging system throughout the region. And that would be, for me, the total peace of mind for the EV owners.
Thank you. Dennis?
For Malaysia, it's always the same question that we always listen to the interested buyer, where when the car price is going to be cheaper than the combustion vehicle, where is the charging station, how far you will go. So all these barriers, all these is definitely need to be addressed. It's not able to address overnight. But we don't want to use this to hinder ourselves not to push this going forward. Especially for government side, they are looking into incentive how to get the electric car makers to be able to sell their products in Malaysia. On top of that, we are looking at electric two-wheelers. Electric two-wheelers is the same problem. People pay petrol, 10 minutes they can go. But we are still looking into, for instance, like there are so many vehicles on the road right now using it for parcel delivery, using for food delivery. They are the one that do not want to see their bike break down. EV have less parts. You can have less time of breakdown time. So this will be able to benefit the people who use the electric. So we are looking into that area to gain start at this stage. And on top of that, not to forget about our listed company. Our listed company or our manufacturing company already enjoying orders from a tier 1 or tier 2 companies, where they already start supplying, making batteries in Malaysia and supplying to a tier 1 or tier 2 company. So yes, there's a barrier, but we can see that we start from those low-hanging fruit. We can gain from there. Then slowly we can see that the policy come in place, and the vehicle will definitely, one day user will definitely interested to convert their combustions to electric. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Tuan.
Okay. From Vietnam, I would like to say that for electric vehicle developments, there are a lot of barriers at this moment. But I would like to say there are two main barriers. The first one would be the investment for the infrastructure of the electric, the charger stations. Who will do that? Private or the government, or and the second one would be a clear roadmap for electric vehicle developments, together with a clear strategy for automotive engineering vehicles in Vietnam. So I would say there are two, and it links together.
Thank you very much. I have seen several questions coming, but our time is quite limited. But I have seen one question for Singapore that quite interesting and might be interesting for other countries too. The question is from Miss Ilika Samito. I'm sorry if I'm spelling your last name wrong. That she's asking that in Singapore there's a target of 100% EV sale by 2031, right? Aside from the incentive to buy EV, what are the regulation or policy relating to the EV car manufacturer for the private sector to achieve this target?
So sorry, Dr. Yosapong, this question is, could you repeat the last part of the question?
Yeah, I think that the question is about regulation or policy for the EV manufacturer, the producer, to be achieved this target. I mean, and I think the things that you are presenting the incentive for the EV buyer, but what about if you have any manufacturer? I'm not sure he means from the manufacturer from outside in Singapore or outside, but could mean both. What do you think?
Right, I think it's likely to be both. So in line with the target set by any country, right? Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines. That there will be a clearer mandate to the industry to transition towards electric. And to be honest, every country has their own circumstances, and they have their own set of unique challenges to meet. So for Singapore, our challenge is that we are not traditionally EV manufacturing or a vehicle manufacturing country, unlike Vietnam, Malaysia, and Thailand, right? So the policies changes were actually meant to give the manufacturers and the dealerships more certainty that the EV population will be sizable enough for domestic consumption to take place, so that they know at least that the cars that they'll be manufacturing will be able to be sold locally, and this hopefully makes a better business case. So in terms of the rest of the ecosystem, because I mentioned during my presentation that it's not just about manufacturing. We do have to take care of the second life battery. We do have to take care of servicing, right? All of this, right now the industry is not set up for servicing thousands of electric vehicles, right? So these are the conversations that will continue to be taking place, and it's going to be very important, in the context that we have to look at the end-to-end cycle of the electric vehicle.
Right. Thank you very much. I think I have just about 3 minutes left. I have kind of the last question for everyone to give 30 seconds to answer this. I'd like you to, maybe foresee in 2030s in your own country, right? What you see about the EV in your own country. Do you think that will be achieved if some country already have the target? Do you think that they will be achieved it? And you could probably comment to the government to do enough to promote this. Yeah, thank you. Maybe start to Mr. Edmund.
Okay, with the current situation and the programs being set by the government, we are seeing a huge amount of improvements on deployments of EVs here. From 300, we'll see that about 500,000, and anticipating the much awaited on the two-wheel sector and the three-wheel, because in terms of logistics and on the usage, there were more people that can afford on the 2 to 3 wheel segment rather than the 4-wheel. And with the concept of the program set by the government, collaboration with the private sector such as EVAP, we are pushing for this for more than a decade, and we now see the fruits of labor that we are doing.
Thank you. Can we go to Singapore, then Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam, please?
I would just like to echo Edmund's points about this is going to be a marathon. 2030 is a long way, so we do need to have stamina to continue operating. And I think as all the ASEAN countries are involved, one key thing would be standardization. That hopefully over the next few years we would be able to agree to common standards, common interoperation, right, between the networks. There will be definitely a lot of networks, and it might be confusing for some users especially when they're going across border. So this will be at least my dream, that for me to drive to Thailand or Vietnam one day, and not having to worry about charging my EV.
Thank you. What about Thailand?
Yes, actually, I like the statement from Terence and Edmund very much. Yeah, I love to see both of them, with the EV cars here in Bangkok. Anyway, I believe that the target by the government has been set clear. By 2030, they want to see 50% of the EV usage. It means that we would expect to see the accumulative of about over 2 million electric passenger car on the road by then. for me, I believe that the government has the vision right. They have the target already set out, but most important is the implementation and to get it done with the support scheme to drive it. Because to achieve 2 million electric vehicle on the road by then, it won't come easy. It won't come easy, but given that they put in the right measure and the right support scheme, I believe it would be achievable.
Dennis?
I would say come to Malaysia is so encouraging right now, especially policy, even though we say that whether Malaysia government have also followed 2030 or 2035, but Malaysia government at an early stage is already pledging to reduce the carbon footprint. That was like 5 years ago. And every year, the ministry are looking into how to reduce the carbon footprint, especially on the electric vehicle side. And electric vehicle side, while they are pledging to lower down the carbon emissions, the public listed companies, if they no longer apply on the ESG, they won't be able to have open up to many investors. So ESG compliant for listed companies is the key right now in order for us to expand our electric vehicle direction. And on top of that, of course, our role here with our ASEAN leaders, once we're able to get all these up, we can see the cars can move until all the ASEAN countries. This is definitely, we can achieve that. So going forward, definitely we need our not only the pushing the government, our private sector, our stakeholders, and also our individuals that don't just think of how cheap you can get the combustion, but if you're going on decide on buying an electric vehicle, definitely you will gain much more than the initial price that you're going to pay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, last one, please.
And from Vietnam, I would say that I would like to follow, other ASEAN countries like, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia. But I believe that, in about 2023, there would be electric cars sold in the market in Vietnam. And after that, there would be a boom in the electric car sale in the market, like that already happened to the electric two-wheelers in Vietnam. And of course, after 2030s, the electric car sales would be, the share would be increasing very fast. And we are in communities, so I hope that I can own an electric car and charge in Bangkok. Okay.
Yeah,
Dr. Yusapong?
Yeah, I think my time is running out. So thank you for everyone today. I might not be able to wrap up, but I think you guys already summarized this. So thank you everyone. I think to joining us today. I think I already have you guys to summarize everything. So I think I might have to close this section now. So thank you very much and see you again.
Okay, thank you.